Sawyer, the boss wants to see you in his study. I froze halfway through stacking the shelves. The boss he was talking about was my uncle, and, unfortunately, the man I had a one-night stand with not long ago. Even though he's an Omega, he's far from gentle. Cold, sharp, and merciless, he seems to take pleasure in breaking alphas apart. I've seen at least 10 alphas carried out of his office barely conscious. Rumor has it he was betrayed by an alpha he once loved. They were supposed to be engaged, but he ran away with someone else. No one knows what happened after that, only that he destroyed his own glands, and ended that alpha's life with his own hands. If he ever finds out the person who spent that night with him was me, I can already imagine my funeral. He's been away for weeks, buried in work. When he came back 2 days ago, even from a distance, you could feel the storm in the air around him. Luckily, he only glanced at me once, then looked away. That look alone told me he hadn't recognized me. For the first time in ages, I felt like I could breathe, but now he's suddenly calling for me again. Could it be? I stammered. Did he say what it's about? No, the staffer said, just that you'd better hurry. You know what happens when the boss gets impatient. Alright, got it. My hands were already trembling. Maybe I should write a will, just in case. I opened my device, typed a few lines, deleted them, typed again, then erased everything. Who would I even leave it to? Just then, my screen lit up with a message from him. What's taking you so long? Short, but enough to make my heart drop. I shoved the device into my pocket and ran toward his study. By the time I arrived, I could barely catch my breath. I knocked softly. Come in, his voice replied almost instantly. He was lounging on the sofa when I entered. His usual coldness dimmed just a little. There was a trace of red at the corner of his eyes. Anger, exhaustion, or something else, I couldn't tell. I stood there, trying to read his face. But before I could speak, he said something that made me freeze. Take off your jacket. What? I said, take it off. You're shaking. He stood and came closer, the distance between us shrinking fast. When I instinctively stepped back, he sighed and stopped. Relax. You look like you're about to bolt, he said, then added quietly, I just want to confirm something. His gaze lingered on my neck, on the faint scar I'd tried to hide. The air turned still. Then, in a voice low enough to make my chest tighten, he said, so it really was you that night. My mind went blank. He didn't sound angry, but that calm tone was somehow even scarier. Uncle, he cut me off. Don't say anything yet. For a moment, silence filled the room, heavy and suffocating. Finally, he spoke again, quietly. You'll stay and explain everything, and after that, we'll decide what to do. I swallowed hard and nodded, my heart pounding louder than any sound in the room. There was no turning back this time. I had to run. I packed the few belongings I had, sneaked into a blind spot outside the cameras, and climbed over the wall as fast as I could. I thought about disappearing completely, but before leaving, I still called my adoptive father. He was the one who'd sent me here as a bargaining chip. I expected him to yell or threaten me when I said I wanted to leave, but to my surprise, he didn't. He simply said he understood and asked to meet at a restaurant downtown to talk. I took a cab there. Just as I stepped out, I ran right into someone I hadn't seen in years. Kevin, my old high school classmate. I pulled my cap lower and looked down at my phone, pretending not to see him. No luck. He grabbed my arm. Sawyer. His voice was low and steady. Ah, what a coincidence, I mumbled, trying to sound calm. The truth was, our relationship had always been a little complicated. When my adoptive parents first took me in, they had wanted an Omega, someone they could marry off to a rich family. But finding one wasn't easy. Omegas were well protected by the Federation, receiving government support and annual stipends until adulthood. Abandonment was rare. They picked me for a different reason. My pheromones were unusually compatible. My match rate with most Omegas was over 70%. That made me a useful tool for climbing the social ladder. They spent most of their savings to get me into an elite academy, hoping I could mingle with the wealthy. Before I even started school, my adoptive father told me, make friends with Kevin. He's important. Kevin was the youngest son of a well-known billionaire, easily the most powerful student there. My father's only regret, Kevin was an alpha too. I didn't care. I had food, a bed, and a future. All I needed to do was keep certain people happy. Kevin wasn't easy to deal with. He had a bad temper, barely talked to anyone, and was unpredictable. But I still did my best to stay close to him for 2 years. Then one day, out of nowhere, he hugged me and said, "You smell nice, you know." I froze. Before I could push him away, he added, "I've decided to date you." Decided? Like I had any say in it. I wasn't ready for that kind of relationship, especially not with another alpha. My adoptive father told me to go along with it anyway. I reminded him the Federation didn't recognize alpha unions. For once, he hesitated but still told me to keep Kevin interested, so I stayed close but never too close. It was awkward, he kept crossing boundaries, but luckily it didn't last long. His mother eventually found out. She showed up, furious, humiliated me in public, threw a 5 million credit check in my face, and told me to disappear, or else. I took the check, cried tears of relief, gave 2 million to my adoptive parents, and kept 3 for myself. My first real money. Now, standing in front of Kevin again, I felt my stomach drop. "Do you know how long I've been looking for you?" he said, gripping my arm tighter. "I'm sorry," I muttered, eyes down. "Yeah, taking the money and vanishing hadn't exactly been noble. My mother threatened you, didn't she? Why didn't you tell me?" His tone softened, then turned sharp again. "If you'd said something, I would've." He stopped halfway, frustrated. Someone called from behind him, "Mr. Collins, your meeting's starting. We can't delay any longer." He sighed. "I know," then turned to me. "Wait for me in the car. I'll be right back." Before I could protest, he had already dragged me toward a sleek black car and practically pushed me inside. "Stay here," he said before walking off. "Yeah, right." I tested the door, it wasn't locked. The driver barely looked up. I slipped out, ran as fast as I could, and didn't look back. By the time I reached the restaurant, my adoptive parents were already there, waving me over. They were unusually warm, too warm. It made me nervous. "Did something happen at the manor?" my father asked. "Plenty happened, but I wasn't about to tell him everything. He didn't need to know I'd been treated like a servant for months." This audio is originally produced by the YouTube channel, Omegaverse Tales Studio. Please credit when sharing. The truth was, my uncle, Beckett, wasn't supposed to have anything to do with me at all. But half a year ago, my adoptive father found an old letter, one written decades ago, promising a marriage alliance between our families. The sender was Beckett's elder brother, and the person I was supposedly engaged to was Beckett's nephew, Weston. Weston looked charming enough, soft features, easy smile, but beneath that, he was arrogant and mean. The first thing he did when he heard about the engagement was kick me to the floor and call my father a shameless beggar. Beckett had stepped in then, all calm confidence, saying we should honor the old promise. I knew he wasn't defending me out of kindness, he was playing his own game. Still, I ended up staying at his estate. On paper, I was a guest. In reality, I was little more than help. Tea, laundry, errands, he had me doing it all. But honestly, I preferred that to being kicked out. Now, sitting across from my adoptive parents, I sighed. "Uncle Beckett, he's complicated." My father gave me a strange look. "So the child isn't yours, then?" "What child?" I froze. "Oh, so you don't know." He smiled faintly. "Forget it. Let's eat first." For a second, I thought maybe he finally cared about me. Then I took a bite, and everything went black. When I woke up, I was in a hotel room. My head was spinning, my body burning, my breathing quick. Someone had drugged me. The door opened. Beckett walked in, tall and composed as ever. I stumbled toward him, disoriented, grabbing his sleeve. "Uncle Beckett, what's happening to me?" He looked down, eyes unreadable. "That's what I'd like to know." His calm voice only made the room feel hotter. My vision blurred. I reached for him instinctively, desperate for something, anything, to make it stop. Then I saw it, 3 long scars crossing the back of his neck, where his scent glands should have been. A faint trace of something lingered in the air, like sake, delicate and distant. "You really have no idea what you've gotten yourself into, do you?" he murmured, and that was the last thing I heard before everything faded to black again. Awake? His voice was low and hoarse, carrying a chill like morning dew. When I opened my eyes, the room was dim. He was leaning casually against the bed, a robe draped loosely over his shoulders, half smiling as smoke curled from the cigarette in his hand. The faint firelight flickered, tracing the sharp lines of his face through the haze. He noticed me staring and leaned closer, blowing out a small puff of smoke that hit my face. I coughed hard, eyes watering. "Never smoked before?" he asked. I shook my head. Without warning, he held the half-burned cigarette to my lips. "Go on, try it." I inhaled, instantly choked, and he laughed out loud. He was impossible. He loved to tease me. Then, out of nowhere, he leaned in and brushed a quick kiss against me. "What's this? Angry already?" "And no," I mumbled, looking away. His smile faded. "You were planning to run, weren't you?" The question froze my spine. "No, of course not. Why would you think that?" "Oh, then explain why you're here." I just... My hand brushed against the old scar on his neck, and I remembered what I'd once seen, how deep it ran. "Does it still hurt?" I asked quietly. He blinked, caught off guard. What? I wrapped my arms around him, whispering, it must have hurt. Who did that to you? Would it matter if I told you? Yes, I said quickly. I'd make them pay for it. He let out a low, humorless laugh. I know I'm not strong, I said, voice trembling, but even if I'm weak, I'd still do anything to protect you. Before I could finish, he grabbed my collar and shoved me back against the headboard. Pain shot through my shoulders, but I bit back a sound. Even if it costs me my life, I gasped, I'll stand by you. He stared down at me, unreadable, his hand tightening until I could barely breathe. Then he suddenly released me. Crying already? He sneered. I touched my face. Sure enough, I was crying. The more I wiped, the worse it got. I'm not crying because I'm scared, I stammered. I'm just sad that you don't believe me. I crawled closer, clinging to him again. You probably don't know this. I'm not even my parents' real child. They adopted me just to trade me for benefits. They forced me here, told me to marry someone I'd never even met. Weston humiliated me, no one respected me. But you were the only one who didn't throw me away. My voice broke. How could I ever want to run from you? They're the ones who betrayed me. They even drugged me before sending me away. Maybe they just didn't want me anymore. I buried my face against him, crying until my whole body trembled. What do I do now? Stop crying, he said flatly. I said, stop crying. His tone sharpened. I flinched, wiped my tears, and pulled the blanket over myself, sitting quietly in the corner until the sobs faded. What? I scare you once and now you hide from me, he muttered. I looked up, confused. Come here, he ordered. Reluctantly, I moved back toward him. He really was impossible to predict. I know I upset you, I whispered. If leaving would make you feel better, I can go. I never said you should leave. His voice was rough. Your foster parents sold you to me. From now on, you'll stay by my side. I exhaled softly. For now, I was safe. Still, I couldn't help thinking, if they sold me, shouldn't I at least get a share of the money? Get ready. You're coming with me to a dinner party. That familiar, commanding tone again. Now that I'd been promoted from servant to personal attendant, I answered obediently, all right, uncle. I changed into a formal suit. He gave me a long look and finally said, you almost look like an alpha now. Do you like it? If you do, I'll dress like this every day. He frowned slightly. No need. He turned away, leaving me to silently sigh. Omegas were truly hard to read. The car rolled into a massive estate on the outskirts of the city. Two huge banners fluttered in the wind, a lion and a tiger, the symbols of the two major political parties of the Galactic Federation. It was rare to see them side by side except during elections. What surprised me most was that when people started whispering about who I was, he didn't deny it. He openly allowed them to think I was his alpha lover. Then I caught his eyes. He was watching me, almost amused, as if testing how I'd react. Years of unrequited devotion kicked in before I could think. I leaned into him and whispered with feigned surprise, really, uncle? I thought you'd never admit it. The nearby politicians got the hint and quietly backed away, leaving us alone. What did you think? He asked softly. That I was just something temporary, that once you were bored, you'd throw me away. Would he feel guilty if he knew he really had thought that once? Probably not. He just smiled, that teasing, dangerous smile of his, and brushed his lips near my ear. My little lover, he murmured, how could I ever throw away someone as obedient, and as perfect, as you? Was that supposed to be a compliment or a threat? Hard to tell. He patted my head lightly. Stay here and look around. I've got business to handle. The moment he left, the air around me loosened. I grabbed a few desserts and wandered through the elegant gardens, finally breathing freely, until a hand grabbed my arm. Sawyer. That voice froze me. Kevin. Oh, great, this scene again. Why did you disappear that day? He demanded. Because I didn't want to deal with you, obviously. But I only lowered my eyes and said quietly, Kevin, let's not see each other anymore. Why not? His voice rose. Your family wouldn't approve, and honestly, staying with you would only bring you trouble. We're from two different worlds. It's better this way. No, Sawyer, don't say that. I'll fix everything, they'll accept us. Seeing that words weren't enough, I shook off his hand and forced a sad smile. It's too late, Kevin. I'm engaged now. I love him, and I'm going to marry him. And you have a fiancé too, don't you? I saw his photo online. A gentle Omega. Everyone knows your wedding is next month. I'll wish you happiness, Kevin. I hope you can wish me the same. That's not true. Don't say it, Kevin. He tried to argue again, but I didn't let him. My voice trembled as I said my last words, then I turned and ran. You're listening to Omegaverse Tales Studio, a YouTube channel dedicated to captivating short stories. Let's continue. I barely made it a few steps before someone yanked me into a storage room. My runaway fiancé seems awfully nervous, a soft voice said. Weston, of course, just my luck. I wasn't going anywhere, I replied carefully. He smiled faintly. Funny, you disappeared, and now suddenly you're your uncle's lover. Impressive. You know I never get to choose anything for myself, I said flatly. Not the engagement, not anything else. He leaned closer, eyes sharp. What would your dear uncle say if he knew you were still thinking about me? Ah, so he wasn't here to fight, he wanted to ruin me. He tore the suppressant patch from his neck and released his scent, watching me for a reaction. When I didn't flinch, his smirk faltered. Then he tried to grab my wrist and pull me closer, but this time, I didn't budge. Frustrated, he backed up a step, ruffling his own clothes until he looked properly disheveled. Then he grinned smugly. Oh, come on. Fake evidence? Really? Before he could shout, I covered his mouth and pinned him to the wall. What if I did take advantage of the situation and mark you? I said coldly. His eyes widened in shock, panic replacing arrogance. He tried to push me away, but I caught his hands easily. I released a hint of my own scent, his breath hitched, and his face flushed instantly. I leaned close enough for him to feel my breath on his skin. He froze, trembling, nearly in tears. I sighed. Relax. I'm not going to hurt you. I couldn't, even if I wanted to. He blinked, confused, and I smiled faintly. I know you hate me, but there's something I need to say, just once. When I first heard I had an Omega fiancé, I was happy. I've never been someone people liked. So I thought, maybe this time I was lucky. When I met you, I was so nervous I couldn't sleep for days. You were even more beautiful than I'd imagined. But I never realized that what felt like a blessing to me was a nightmare for you. For someone like me, you must have thought it was a curse. So, if our engagement really makes you miserable, I'll talk to your parents myself. I'll end it. Maybe then, you'll hate me a little less. After saying that, I turned and walked away before he could respond. Honestly, after such a moving speech, if he still wants revenge, that's on him, not me. To get Weston sent off me, I stood in the wind for ages until the cold cut right through my jacket. Bored and shivering on the stone steps, I sent Beckett a message. Uncle, I miss you. When can we go back? He replied fast. 10 minutes. A minute later he added, wait a bit, I'll be there ASAP. I tried to be calm. You're great, Uncle. Your business is more important. I'm not in a hurry. I'll wait as long as you need. But Beckett didn't make it in time. Instead, chaos arrived. I didn't even fully understand what was happening when I was shoved into a strange vehicle, but a gunshot cleared everything up in a second. A masked man nearby fell with a sickening thud, headshot. Then another masked voice shouted, guards are here. Pull back. They retreated like a professional unit, precise, disciplined, nothing like common thieves. The whole operation felt planned. 2 middle-aged alphas were tied up in the same car with me. From the way they'd been treated, I guess they were politicians, not low rank at all. The kidnappers had secured them tightly. Compared to them, my single handcuff felt like an afterthought. In short, I was collateral. Just bad luck. Their guard paid almost no attention to me, which gave me a sliver of opportunity to try and slip away. I nearly made it out when I heard a familiar voice shout, who do you think you're messing with? Do you know who I am? You don't fear retribution? The masked men only laughed and taunted him. I turned and saw Weston surrounded, his clothes being roughly pulled at. My stomach twisted. Before I could fully react, the pursuers closed in. There, don't let him escape. Damn my conscience. Running didn't look possible, so I doubled back and shoved an alpha off Weston. Might as well earn some goodwill. Don't touch him. I'm his fiancé, I bluffed, helping Weston to his feet. He collapsed into me and sobbed. The leader barked orders. One of the masked men tried to argue and got kicked down. Next time you hesitate, we shoot, the leader snapped. Then he pointed at us. Tie them and bring them back. 7. You actually came to save me. Weston leaned against me, voice small. I didn't want to be a hero, luck just put me there. I'm still technically your fiancé, I muttered. They slammed the heavy door shut behind us. I helped loosen Weston's ropes and then worked on my own. The place we were in was weird, narrow, lit by a single yellow bulb. Pipes thicker than arms crisscrossed the walls. It looked abandoned, dusty wooden crates, scattered debris, and the hum of distant machinery. It's so cold, Weston said. I hadn't noticed at first, but the temperature had dropped a lot since we were brought in. I took off my coat and gave it to him. He put it on without hesitation. After a quick check, I realized with a sinking feeling, is this a cold storage room? The dropping temperature confirmed it. To keep warm, we curled up against the wall together. Our limbs went numb. At the rate the room was cooling, I worried we wouldn't last long. For the young master, dying with me would be terrible luck, I muttered, half joking. Weston snapped back softer than I expected, shut up. Don't talk about dying. Then, quieter and more sincere, we'll get out of this alive. His voice grew fuzzy as he drifted in and out of consciousness. Hey, fiancé, if we make it back, marry me, okay? He mumbled. A bitter little smile tugged at my frozen lips. If marriage meant being safe from Beckett's schemes, maybe, but realistically, Weston wasn't his match. Still, a promise of money or protection wasn't the worst consolation. A loud bang startled me awake. Someone was silhouetted at the doorway. Uncle, I breathed. Beckett strode in without mercy, kicked Weston, who slumped over, and scooped me up. The warmth of his body against mine brought a wave of relief so strong I blacked out in his arms. Nearby, men spoke in urgent tones, check him. If the young master is alive, bring him back. Alert the elder. Someone inside the black party tried to move against us. If he won't act, I will. Tisk, playing this card now. Outside team, Flanders, you get the leader. Make him talk. The rest, deal with them. After a week of recovery, I was forced back to my usual duties. Later, Beckett sighed as he gently patted my back. If the father of the child I'm carrying were as obedient as you, he murmured, maybe I'd show him a little mercy. My heart skipped. You mean, you'd let him live? He smiled faintly, as if he were commenting on the weather. No, I'd just let him die in one piece. A chill ran through me. His calm tone made it even scarier. I couldn't let him find out that I was the one who'd slept with him before. Just when I was debating whether to disappear again, my gaze fell on his stomach, the part he'd always hidden before. Now he didn't seem to care if I saw. His pale skin was marked with a striking red tattoo, a demon-like sigil that curled around his waist like a spider's web. This story is exclusively produced by the YouTube channel, Omegaverse Tales Studio. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe. Who would have thought that under those neat suits, he had such a secret side? The thought alone made my ears burn. His once flat stomach now carried a slight curve. I couldn't help but lean closer, resting my cheek gently against it. Through his skin, I thought I could almost hear a faint heartbeat. So close. My only living relative in this world. Uncle, I whispered, can I ask, why did you decide to keep the child? He ran his fingers lazily through my hair. What's this? Are you jealous? And no, I stammered. He didn't reply. When I glanced up, his expression had turned from sunny to cloudy, clearly displeased. I scrambled to fix it. Okay, fine, I am jealous. Just thinking that you might have cared for another alpha makes my chest hurt. He rested his pale fingers over his stomach, voice cool. If you don't like it, once I take power, I can get rid of him. Don't, I blurted, then softened my tone. I mean, I like him. Because he's yours. Anything connected to you, I'll like. I tried to smile. He'll probably look a lot like you. I've never seen what you looked like as a kid. If only I'd met you earlier. Beckett's eyes darkened. Come here, he said, hooking a finger under my chin. I followed his pull, and suddenly he pushed me back and kissed me hard, rough, unpracticed, like someone venting frustration more than affection. Then, knock, knock. Someone outside hesitated before calling out, boss. Interrupted, Beckett's mood snapped. Without a word, he grabbed a crystal ornament from the bedside table and hurled it at the door. It shattered with a sharp crack, scattering across the floor. The man outside went silent immediately. Beckett's brows knit tight. He bit lightly at my collarbone, not to hurt, just a childish gesture of annoyance. I carefully coaxed, I'd love for you to stay longer too, but what if it's something important? Rubbing my cheek against his softly, I added, why don't you check first? I'll make breakfast for you. Then we can eat together, okay? He paused, then finally muttered, fine, and got off me lazily. Wait, I said quickly. He turned in surprise as I knelt to slip his slippers onto his feet. Be careful not to step on glass. His lips curved, eyes narrowing in amusement as he leaned down and kissed the corner of my eye. Wait for me. I'll be quick. It was such a small gesture, but full of quiet meaning. Uncle, Weston said bluntly, tilting his chin up. My fiancé has been staying with you for a while. Thanks for the hospitality, but I'm here to take him back. Hand him over. Beckett looked up from his seat, clearly unamused. Ever since that night, Weston hadn't been able to stop thinking about Sawyer, his quick, trembling kiss, his steady embrace, the quiet warmth that lingered like sunlight. Even in dreams, Weston could almost feel that gentle scent that belonged only to Sawyer. He tried to lie to himself, but it was useless. His heart had already fallen, completely and hopelessly. So the moment he was discharged from the hospital, Weston rushed straight to Beckett's estate. He regretted everything about their first meeting, how his arrogance had ruined it and given his manipulative uncle a chance to take Sawyer away. And those rumors, whispers that Sawyer had become Beckett's favorite, just thinking about it made him furious. Beckett hadn't expected his morning to be interrupted by this reckless nephew, especially not to demand his Sawyer back. He'd long considered Sawyer his own. There was no way he'd let anyone else touch what was his. Suppressing his irritation, Beckett said evenly, "And if I refuse? Then I'll take him by force." Weston snapped. "He's my fiancé, you have no right to keep him." Beckett gave a dry laugh. "Oh, funny. Wasn't it you who once said he wasn't good enough for you? That marrying him would be a joke." "That was before," Weston argued. "Things are different now. We're in love. He wants to marry me, too." "Uncle, you can't tear apart two people who love each other." "Two people in love?" Beckett smirked. "So being kidnapped once makes you soulmates?" He leaned back, voice dripping with mockery. "Fine then, why don't we ask Sawyer himself?" "Sure," Weston said, staring him down. "Call him in." When Sawyer was brought in, he was completely confused. He'd just been waiting for breakfast. The tension in the room made his stomach twist. The first thing Weston noticed was the faint mark on Sawyer's lip, like someone had bitten him. Weston's chest tightened. Rage and guilt tangled in his throat. Did Beckett force him? Sawyer caught Weston's stare and awkwardly looked down, licking the tiny cut as if trying to hide it. But that small movement only made Weston's heart ache more. He stepped forward quickly, voice shaking. "Sawyer, I was wrong before. I'll make it up to you. Just tell him you want to leave with me, please." He reached out and hugged Sawyer tightly. "Come back with me. Let's get married." The moment Weston touched him, Beckett's hand tightened around his teacup. A sharp crack rang through the room as he slammed it down, shattering porcelain across the table. Before he could even think, Beckett stormed forward and yanked Sawyer out of Weston's arms. "Let go of him," Weston shouted, refusing to release his grip. Sawyer was caught between the two, helpless and overwhelmed. "My little alpha," Beckett said darkly, "choose. Do you want to go with him, or stay with me?" "Sawyer, don't be afraid," Weston pleaded. "He won't dare hurt you while I'm here." Sawyer looked left, then right. Neither option looked safe. Beckett's patience was thinning fast. His grip tightened painfully. "Give me a reason to spare you," his eyes warned. "Otherwise, you'll regret it." Sawyer's mind raced. If he left with Weston, he might rise fast, but he'd probably end up dead. If he stayed with Beckett, at least he'd survive for now. After a deep breath, he made his decision. "Sawyer," Weston began, confused, as Sawyer gently pulled his hand away. "Master Weston," Sawyer said quietly, "I'm sorry. I was supposed to cancel our engagement, but things got delayed. I know it's been a burden for you, but I'll make sure it's resolved soon." "It's not a burden. I really want to marry you," Weston said, desperate. Sawyer lowered his gaze. "Beckett has treated me well. I owe him too much to just walk away." He stepped back slightly, his choice clear. "Did he threaten you?" Weston demanded. "That's enough," Beckett cut in sharply, pulling Sawyer behind him. "He said no." "This is a lie," Weston roared. "You forced him." Beckett ignored the outburst. Calmly, almost lazily, he straightened Sawyer's collar, then undid the top button, just enough to expose faint red marks along his neck. When he looked back at Weston, his eyes were glacial. Seeing those marks, Weston froze. His mind went blank. "Beckett," he hissed, trembling, "you already have a child no one knows the father of, and now you're forcing my fiancé into your bed? You're disgusting." Weston's anger boiled over. He lunged at Beckett. Sawyer threw himself between them. "Stop. It's not like that. It's my child," he blurted, voice barely above a whisper. Both men froze. Beckett's expression flickered. Then, coldly, he told his guards, "Get him out of my sight." As Weston was dragged toward the door, he shouted furiously, "You're nothing but a broken Omega, Beckett. You'll never be marked again. You're just a cripple clinging to what you can't have. Keeping Sawyer here is cruel and selfish." That hit a nerve. Beckett's whole body trembled. Years of buried pain ripped open. For the first time, his control snapped. He pulled out his gun and aimed straight at Weston. Sawyer reacted instantly, jerking his hand up and pushing Beckett's arm aside. The bullet missed. "Uncle, please," Sawyer said, wrapping his arms around him. "You're not broken. I don't care about any of that. I just don't want you hurt." Beckett didn't respond. Weston was already gone, the echo of his words still burning in the air. Grinding his teeth, Beckett turned to his men. "If I ever see him here again, start digging your own graves." No one dared to move. When the room finally fell quiet, Beckett looked at Sawyer, at his worried, trembling eyes, and something inside him softened. But that softness frightened him. He grabbed Sawyer by the throat and pressed him back against the wall. His thoughts spun wildly. "He's getting to me. I should end this now. No, I can control him. I can keep him. Can you really? You can't even control your own feelings. It's not love, just possession. Sawyer gasped for air. Thinking fast, he whispered, voice gentle as a plea, Uncle, I'm hungry. Let's have breakfast, okay? The words broke through the fog in Beckett's mind. His grip loosened. He pressed a hand to his forehead, then rested his face against Sawyer's shoulder, exhausted. Not yet, he murmured. Not now. He led Sawyer to the bathroom. Sawyer tried to protest, but Beckett brushed him off, insisting on cleaning the blood from his cuts himself. Later, Sawyer sat on the bed wrapped in a towel, damp hair clinging to his neck, looking utterly defeated. He'd never been more awkward in his life. Beckett tossed Sawyer's old clothes out the door. Burn them, he ordered. Terrifying Omega, Sawyer muttered inwardly. Finally, Beckett cupped Sawyer's face in one hand. His voice softened, but his eyes were cold. From now on, he said slowly, don't let any other Omega touch you. Ever. The words were sweet on the surface, but underneath, they coiled like a warning, a velvet rope hiding steel. Sawyer could almost feel it, a serpent wrapping itself around him, gentle, beautiful, and impossibly dangerous. As the months passed, my uncle became more and more dependent on me. By the time the baby was 5 months along, he could barely stand being apart. If I left his sight for even a moment, his emotions spiraled, restless, anxious, almost panicked. Only when he was near me, surrounded by my scent, would he calm down again. Eventually, even when he went out for meetings, he'd take me along. Of course, I wasn't allowed to join the discussions, he'd just have me wait nearby until he was done. But being by his side let me glimpse secrets others could only guess at. The old patriarch was gravely ill, and power was quietly shifting into my uncle's hands. It was obvious, he was being chosen as the next head of the family. Meanwhile, the Federation's election season had begun. Outwardly, our family remained neutral, pretending to stay out of politics. But behind the scenes, they were funding candidates and pulling strings. Everyone knew that elections were expensive, a single campaign could cost millions. And candidates rarely paid out of pocket. They always had benefactors. If my suspicions were right, that unassuming young congressman everyone underestimated was probably someone my uncle himself had helped create. It was a dangerous gamble, but the prize, control over the Federation, was worth every risk. I followed the election closely, watching things tilt steadily in our favor. By every calculation, my uncle was winning. It was almost a sure thing. What I failed to consider was that every person at this level of power was a gambler ready to burn the world for victory. The car drove smoothly along the road back to the estate. My uncle sat beside me, flipping through a stack of documents. I kept to my corner, respectful and silent, not daring to look at the papers. My gaze drifted instead to his stomach. Even in a larger suit, I could see a faint curve, barely noticeable, just enough to show he wasn't as lean as before. He looked fragile, beautiful, and I couldn't help but feel a strange anticipation for the moment this child would finally arrive. Then it happened. A car came speeding toward us out of nowhere and slammed straight into ours. I reacted on instinct, threw myself over him, shielding him with my body. Glass shattered, metal twisted, pain seared through me, but I barely registered it. All that mattered was that my uncle was safe. Blood splashed across his pale face, and I managed a weak smile, thinking, the baby should be fine too. The pain grew unbearable. My hearing faded into a high-pitched ring. Through the haze, I saw his terrified face. The calm, poised man I'd always known now trembling like a lost child. Sawyer, Sawyer, stay with me. He pressed against my wound, hands shaking, desperate to stop the bleeding. Uncle, I tried to speak but choked on a mouthful of blood. I wanted to tell him, if I didn't make it, please take care of the baby. But I didn't, because if I survived, I'd regret saying goodbye too soon. A few days later, I woke up, barely alive, but alive. He hadn't left my side the entire time. When I opened my eyes, he was slumped over the bed, looking exhausted and pale. After that, everything between us changed. The distance, the caution, the cold detachment, all gone. He no longer treated me like a passing distraction. He began to treat me like someone he loved. And when the walls finally came down, I discovered a softer side of him, a quiet, gentle warmth that only appeared when he curled up in my arms like a sleepy cat. It felt, in a strange way, like fate giving us a second chance. As his trust grew, he started letting me manage his affairs. By the final months of his pregnancy, he had even transferred control of several businesses to me. He didn't realize I'd grown up in the slums, where survival meant taking every opportunity. That instinct had long been carved into my bones. I'd learned to build, to fight, to take. In just a few months, I'd gathered my own loyal followers, my own influence. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel like an outsider anymore. But it still wasn't enough. I wanted to stand beside him as an equal, because somewhere along the way, I decided I truly wanted to love him, to build a home, with this difficult, beautiful, stubborn Omega. The day our child was born, everything changed again. A little Omega baby. When the nurse handed him to me, I felt something in my chest crack open. For the first time in years, I felt grounded, whole, like all my drifting had finally come to an end. I held him carefully, afraid I might hurt him. He was so small, so soft, so alive. His eyes were the same light amber as mine. His nose and lips, just like my uncle's. I carried him into the room, nudged my uncle gently, and said with a grin, "Uncle, look, he's a beautiful little Omega." I brushed a finger across the baby's cheek. "His nose and mouth look exactly like yours." He gave a quick glance and looked away with a click of his tongue. "TCH, an Omega." I defended softly, "Omegas are wonderful. They're no less than anyone else, just like you." He sighed. "You don't understand. You don't know what he'll face. Because he's an Omega, his life will be harder than most." The baby's tiny fingers curled around mine. I looked down at him and said firmly, "No, whatever happens, I'll protect him. Always, even if it costs me my life."